So Shelly, I'm going to turn it over to you and
Okay.
you can take it from here.
All right. Let me share my screen. All right. Are you able to see my screen?
Could be bigger. There we go. There we go.
There we go. Better. All right. Well, I'm happy to have you all here. Welcome, Talk a Mile, Walk a Mile, Talk a Mile. I'm so excited for you guys to learn from you and to bring you in to learn from this wonderful community. We're really fortunate that there's just a lot of passion and energy, and we're so thrilled to have you with us. Um, right now, what we're going to talk about, Jim mentioned, how do we the intent behind what we're doing is to help all of us focus on now that we have once we have a good understanding of what the challenges are in our community, how do we act, what are we going to do? And a theory of change is an incredibly useful tool for any organization who's looking to sort of take all of our understanding and turn that into activities and outcomes and real impact. So there is every grantee will be asked to complete this theory of change process. I have a timeline and we'll do it. We're going to do it. We want to have these ready by November 1st. So there's quite a bit of activity we're excited to do with you. And we're going to talk a little bit about what is a theory of change, how it will help, why it will help, and then how we're going to put it together and what that's going to look like here. And Jim or Colleen or Tanner, did you have any other sort of founding conversation thoughts around why we're doing this that you'd like to share?
Shelly, I would just add that it really will also help QSide, who's working with us on the local data use, because the data will come alongside your theory of change to help in measuring those things that are going to matter to get at your impact.
Absolutely. And you'll see we've got some language in here around outcomes that will be directly connected to the work that you've all been doing with QSide over the summer. Okay, thank you. All right, so this timeline kind of helps us see where are we in the process. And when it comes to like where we are as kind of an organization, everyone's a little bit along this spectrum, but this activity of theory of change development really kind of sits in this organize as we prepare to act. What is it that we can do? So this is, you'll see this illustration again and again, especially when we have other sites join, because we're all kind of at different spots. But this is where we are. This is an activity that allows us to truly link our efforts to outcomes and impact. So we're excited to be where we are. Okay, this is a question, and I am going to ask you all to actively use the chat. So open it up if you haven't already done so. So click that open and maybe just put a little hi, this is Shelly, tell us where you are, something in the chat. So you can see. So what is a theory of change? A theory of change is a map of how the work that we do is going to lead to impact that includes the building blocks that are necessary in order to do that. So I have a question for you. What is your experience with the theory of change? Have you had some of you may have had an opportunity to build one of these or to work with one of these. If you can just take a minute and in the chat, just let us know what your experience is with the theory of change. Oh, I love to see. Hi, Kit in Ann Arbor, Tyrone, happy to have you here. Hi, Jude. Oh, I love seeing everyone popping into the chat. And as we're typing, is there anyone who would be open to sharing your experience with the theory of change? Colleen, would you mind sharing your thoughts around how you've seen these be useful in the past or what your experience is?
Sure. I do a lot of grant writing, and many grants require you to provide a theory of change because the rest of everything you write about flows from what your assumptions are. So the theory of change sort of capsulizes how you're defining what it is that you're addressing and how you're going to, what your assumptions are about that. So it focuses and clarifies what the what is, and makes sure that everybody's on the same page. And then from that should flow decisions that we make about, okay, if we think this, then this is going to happen. If we do this, this is going to happen. Then your strategies and activities flow from that.
Great. Thank you, Colleen. And thanks, Jude and Cheryl. I love your note in the chat. I'm new and paying attention. We're so glad you're here. We're excited. All right. Well, I can tell you my experience with the theory of change has been this is a tool. Think of it as a planning exercise and a strategy exercise that has the most potential, in my experience, to help bootstrap action and activity and really help us truly focus and connect our activities with our intended outcome. So I love this as a useful tool. What you will see, what we've put together, there are many, many ways to approach a theory of change. There are as many ways to illustrate it as there are organizations. We have worked really hard to streamline it as much as possible so that it will be the most useful for you with but won't require as much effort. So some theory of change exercises, I've seen them go 2-3 years, but we're not going to do that. We're gonna do the most important part of it, and that's what how you'll see this adapted. So if you've done it in the past and it seemed a little different, that's normal. Our goal is to make this experience as good as possible for you. And also, as you go through this experience with Act Now, these are tools that you can use in other efforts that you have. It's actually a useful experience and process to do almost anytime you're developing a new program. So this is meant to be here. Let's do this for our existing grant funding, but also use this. This is a tool for you to continue to do the good work that you do beyond here and now. Thank you. Any other thoughts about your experience with the theory of change?
Shelly, this is Jude. I'll just say very quickly, hi, everyone. We're really, for those who we haven't met, we're super excited to get to know you. For me, like, for what we do with the data side of things, it's so important to have a really well-developed theory of change because it helps us frequently on the data side. What we end up finding is that we use sort of data in this opportunistic way where we're like, well, we have this data, let's do something with it. But I think if we have a really well-developed theory of change, it helps folks who have our sort of skill set to really understand how to find and help you use data that's actually meaningful, not just happens to be available. So I'm really excited that we're on this journey together.
So excited. And Jude and your teams we're really looking forward to seeing how this all meshes together because it's all one work. And you will see, all of you, that this complements the work you've already been doing with QSide. And you should be able to sort of you'll already have some work done to fill in your worksheet for a theory of change. So thank you. Thank you, Jude. We're really excited. Okay, so what are the elements of a theory of change? I'm going to very briefly sort of touch on each of these, but we've built a course for you that goes into each of these more deeply. So don't feel like you have to understand everything right now. What we're doing right now is I'm just giving you a quick overview and sort of a framework that you can hang your understanding on as you do go through the course. So what are the elements of a theory of change? First, we need to know who our audience is. And that includes a community description that includes what we understand about the local data around what's happening in your site. It includes who your community is. It includes what you've learned in your listening sessions already. So who is this that we are supporting and who's your audience? That's the first step always. And then we move into what challenges are they encountering? And a problem statement, it's one of my favorite parts of a theory of change. You might find out this. I love it because we write that problem from the perspective of the end user in a manner that if you hailed it and handed it to an end user, to one of your audience members, which I recommend you doing, they should be able to look at that and go, yep, that feels like my experience. So what is the challenge? What is the problem that we are looking at? One of the things that is so glorious about the Act Now, Jen mentioned the 3 pillars, is this organization is incredibly good at listening and understanding and taking in what people are saying. But now what do we do with that? How do we focus that? If we are listening, sometimes that can become overwhelming, especially if you're listening to all the challenges that come to a community. So the problem statement is a focus exercise to help us take all of that we know about the community and focus on what piece we feel like where we can really help. Next, after that, we identify what are the evidence-based practices, what are the innovation practices that will help us get there. And we have we have some that Act Now as an organization sort of founds on, but you will find, we were working with John with Oklahoma City, and one of their biggest focus is truancy rates. So how do they, how can they help decrease truancy rates? So there is research-based evidence on programs to help with alleviate truancy. So what does that look like? So we're always looking for not only what do we hear from our audience, what do we learn, but what is there in the world that is a best practice that we can build off of. That's very important in a theory of change, because what we're saying through a theory of change is, I'm going to do this because I have evidence that it's going to work. So that's an important part of how we decide what we're even going to do. Next, there is a summary statement, and you'll learn more about that. But I like to just use a model of, if we do this, then this will happen because of this. If, then, because. This is an exercise that I have always found is really helpful to sort of focus and say, why am I choosing the interventions I'm choosing? Why are we doing these activities? Well, if we do this, then this will happen. And this is the evidence that we have that is the case. Does it always work out that way? Absolutely not, because we're humans and these are really tricky, sticky problems that we're trying to help with. But doing that, providing that that thought and pulling it all the way through is incredibly helpful, and making sure that the programs that we're doing are actually truly targeted at the challenges that we're looking to address. 5 is around inputs, and that is, what are all of the things that need to come together in order to make this work? So that's things like funding, that's things like staff support, that's things like stakeholder engagement and alignment, and there is a lot that Act Now provides for you, and we'll share those with you. But there's also other resources or inputs that are going to be necessary in order to truly make the solutions work. Next are, what are the activities and outcomes? This is where the rubber hits the road. What are we actually going to do? Very clearly, we're going to do these 3 activities, and here are the outcomes that we expect out of those activities. Those outcomes are not necessarily impact. You may have some short-term outcomes that are more like guiding you towards your true impact. But we want to be really clear about what are those things that we're doing and what do we expect to happen as an outcome based on those activities. And then finally, at this point in the process, we have what we're calling an anticipated impact statement, which is sort of from your heart. What is the change you are hoping to drive? And after we've been working together, and we'll be talking about what does it look like a year from now, but that anticipated impact will turn into your actual impact. What was the impact that you were able to make? Any thoughts or questions around these elements of a theory of change? Okay, great. That, like I said, we have a course that I'll share with you, and you're going to get to know this stuff inside and out. this is just an example of what the output might look like. So there are multiple ways, like I said, to illustrate a theory of change. It typically looks sort of like this, like a map. We have a template that we've put together that we will help you create, so that what your end output will look like is you'll have essentially a 2-page document that you can use to communicate with funders, to communicate with stakeholders, potential partners, your staff, your volunteers, to help everyone kind of understand. It's also like think of it as a communication tool as well, to understand what is it you're doing, what are we about, and how are we going to make the impact that we do. And it's quite extraordinary, I think, when everyone on your team, everyone who's in your circle, is all aligned and focused on driving the change. And this is a tool that will allow you to sort of galvanize that kind of support and get people connected to the work that you're doing in a really meaningful and helpful way. Okay, this is another chat exercise, so get your fingers ready. How can this be helpful for you? I've put some ideas down here, but I'm going to ask everyone to try and pull up, like, what would this do for you? How might this be useful for you? As I'm talking through these points, I'd love to have you adding your thoughts in the chat. First of all, this is, Jim's talked about our timeline for the granting process, but like as new sites come in, this will be the first thing they do in preparation for that grant proposal, because once we have this theory of change, we have a really clear understanding of what needs to be done and what needs to be funded. So it's a really useful tool to get some traction on there. So if you're having some struggle or feeling frustrated not getting traction on that, this exercise will help you for sure. And it will also be helpful for other potential funding that you're looking for. Next, it helps to clarify your vision and strategy. Everyone gets a chance to see what is it that we are doing. Everyone on your team can catch the vision, can understand their part, and start contributing. So it's a really helpful way to help clarify that vision. Measuring progress and impact, we need to know upfront what impact we're even trying to make. Like, how do we know? Like, what measures do we have? And this is a lot of the work that I know you all have already done with QSide. So how do we help understand where we are now, see our intervention, and then see if have we improved? Did we make a difference? This really helps lay the foundation for that. Enhancing effectiveness is about, let's all make sure that all of the activities that we are doing directly tie to the impact we're trying to make. So, and we are all problem solvers in this space, and we might see a challenge and start a program to address it. And it's very, very easy in this space to quickly get diluted with what it is that we're trying to do, because we're trying to help all the things and address all the problems, and that can impact our effectiveness. So having a clear understanding of, here are the things that we're doing and here's why, that always helps to boost effectiveness in the organization. Strengthening communication. This is one of the things I really love most about these is, and I mentioned this earlier, is the ability to communicate what it is we're about, what it is we're doing. You can use this as a framework for updates. You know, these are the activities, these are the outcomes we had hoped for. We blew those outcomes away, or we're struggling a little. You know, it's such a useful way to communicate internally with your team, but also externally with stakeholders and funders. And finally, accountability. This is super transparent. We are saying, here is what we're doing. We're being super open and clear about it. And that's particularly important when you're dealing with vulnerable populations, which we've talked about in the past, because there's a very important element of trust building that transparency is often the only thing that will help with. So this is another tool to be transparent and accountable, and to find ways to ensure that the community and our audience is aware of what we're doing and aligned with what we're doing, and or can provide us with suggestions or opportunities to improve our offerings. So I noticed a couple of really wonderful ideas. Tyrone, I wonder if would you mind sharing with us your thoughts? I like your comment in the chat.
Yeah, I can briefly I think the theory of change is really helpful for connecting things that maybe to funders or even, to people outside of your organization don't seem connected. But as a lot of to sort of make meaningful change often requires a more holistic vision, so I think that the theory of change is a really helpful tool in both for the organization and then communicating that these more holistic approaches and tying together these sort of seemingly disparate pieces.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and being willing to to share your ideas with us. Any other thoughts? Okay. So here are the tools that we have put together that are available for you. First, we have a course that I'm going to show you. I'm going to do a little walkthrough that will teach you much more about each of those elements. As you are doing the course, you'll hear me call it's the course and the worksheet. The worksheet goes along with the course, and as you're doing the course, you're going to take that worksheet and you're going to start building this for your organization. So that they're built to go together to help you as you are developing your understanding of a theory of change, but also clarifying your thoughts. So we have the course, we have the worksheet, and then you have me to help you. And also when you get me, you get Tucker, who's an extra special addition, I think, to any effort. But I will be helping you to evolve. We're going to take the course, complete the worksheet, then you and I will meet and we'll do a consultation and I will help you. And Jude and your team, we might tap on your shoulder at that point also, especially around the outcomes, to help evolve that and get it in really good shape. Then you will take your draft and share with your Justice Circle. Get aligned, make sure everyone is, all of your stakeholders are on board. We expect that there will be changes and evolution after you have that conversation. Get those changes back to me, and then I will develop for you a final version that you can consider like your publishable version that you can share. So these are tools that are available, and I am going to quickly pop out. Well, in a minute, I'll pop out and we will look at the course together. Here is, and I'll ask you to screenshot this or get familiar with this, especially these dates. So these dates will help you as you are looking at developing this theory of change so that we can get it all completed and done by November 1st is the goal. I've done an estimate of the amount of time it might take to do the work. The course itself is not going to take a lot of time. What will take more time is your thinking and your working through the worksheet. So start with the course. Our recommendation is that you finish that by September 30th, by the end of this month. And then hold a consultation with me. I will give you, and we're going to do this today, we're actually going to set up our appointments, a time for you and I to meet by October 3rd. Then you'll have a couple of weeks where we are going to recommend that you take it back to your Justice Circle, have the conversations, do the aligning, make the changes, and then get that back to me. And then it'll take me a couple of weeks to get those all processed into something that can be published for you. Once that's done, then you can share it with all of your people. Share it with the people that you're trying, new partners, share it with your funders. If you haven't completed your grant proposal, it will be incredibly helpful for you to include particularly the activities outcomes will be helpful for you. And we'll be happy. Tanner and I both will be happy to meet with, if you want to bring us along to a Justice Circle conversation to help introduce it or do some, provide some thinking or support around that, we're happy to help. We do recommend everyone, all of our site coordinators, we're anticipating you will complete the course, and we strongly recommend you inviting your Justice Circle members to complete the course as well. Doing that will help that alignment conversation move a lot more smoothly. You'll find that once people are really familiar with the concept, when you get to that alignment conversation, you're really talking about your programs and activities, not necessarily having to teach people the framework that you're working in. So we strongly recommend you're inviting your Justice Circle members to complete the course as well. Questions or thoughts on the timeline? Okay. When I hear that, do you know, I hear everyone go, "That's awesome, Shelly. I'm totally going to hit those times. It's going to be great." So thank you for providing that affirmation for me. Okay, so next up here is, and I'm going to put these, let me see if I can exit full screen. I'm going to throw these in the chat. We are going to get into the course, first of all, and make sure everyone has access. I'm going to put this in the chat.
Hey, Shelly, can I just make a comment real quick?
Please.
While you're getting ready to do that. So Shelly and I had the opportunity to go through this process with John Middendorf, who is the site coordinator for the Oklahoma City Justice Circle. And he helped us refine and work through it. But he went through the process exactly the same way that you're about to go through this process. And it was just a really interesting experience to watch him. He's been doing this type of work for a long time, but specifically breaking bread events and listening sessions for 3 or 4 years now. And what I thought was so interesting is the amount of texture that was gained in, you know, the few hours that we invested together. As he worked through what he had thought he was planning to do, he realized there were a couple of holes that he wanted to fill. I'd ask him to speak to it, but I don't think he's here on the call today. And by the end, he was so excited about what we'd come up with and a couple little adjustments that had been made, because mapping it out and seeing it and kind of thinking through it kind of exposed some of these maybe some opportunities or weaknesses that could be adjusted or worked on. And it was just a really neat experience. So I am expecting to see it will be different for each group based on where you're at and what your activities are and how you're moving forward. But it can be a very like enlightening, and it can bring a lot of passion. So I guess I just wanted to say I'm excited to dive in and kind of see how this works for each of you guys.
Thank you, Tanner, so much. And while you all are accessing that link, you've reminded me, I'm going to show you guys John's. I think he won't mind. He knows. I did, Tanner, you may notice I removed some of the budget numbers from this sample, but this is, I know it's probably quite small. Let me see. Are you still seeing my screen?
Nope.
Okay, so this is Oklahoma City's draft. They're still sharing it with their Justice Circle, but their draft theory of change. So they have this really wonderful, and this is available to you in the course. So you'll be able to refer back to this and kind of see where you're headed. I have a really good understanding of the problem, some helpful and grounding evidence-based practices. Here is their if then because statement. If our Justice Circle, well, let me start with the problem statement. Remember, a problem statement is understanding the perspective from the end user. I have a hard time getting to school. It just doesn't seem important considering all the other things going on in my life. I have challenges at home. We struggle financially. I have a lot going on. My mom's in jail and I have a lot of responsibilities. When I do go to school, it isn't engaging and I have a hard time focusing. It doesn't always feel safe and I don't want to be there. This is the problem that the Oklahoma City Justice Circle is going to be addressing. Of all of the things that they experienced in their listening sessions, this is the area where they feel like they have the most opportunity to really be supportive. So it's really helpful to crystallize that problem statement. And then I'll share this with you. So I won't read through every piece of it, but I will show you. We have a section on inputs. What are the inputs? Here are the activities that they're going to be doing. and their anticipated outcome, and then their anticipated impact narrative. So this is sort of the culmination of what the work we did with John. We also have an appendix that includes their community overview, listening session themes, and local data that's like, here's how we got to this point. But this little 2-page document is what you will end up with, that you'll be able to share with your stakeholders. Okay, course. Have you been able to access the course? Raise your hand. We want everyone in there. Yes? Anyone having trouble getting in? Because there's about to be a part 2 to this. Okay, you can see my screen, and I'll just quickly overview. There's what is sort of foundational, what is a theory of change, the elements of a theory of change that we just kind of started to go through. These should look familiar to you. And then how to build your own and what that looks like. I'm going to ask you all right now that since you're all in the course, to go to this lesson 2, Act Now, Theories of Change. And when you're there, get to this theory of change worksheet at the base. Can everyone see it? And we're going to open that worksheet up. And I'm going to invite you all. It will open up in Google Drive. If you're having trouble with this, you can reach out to me or Tanner afterwards, and we'll help you with this. But I'll invite you to make a copy and save it somewhere. I recommend keeping it in Google Drive. That'll be easier for us on console. But if that's uncomfortable for you, you can certainly download it onto your desktop, and we can deal with it via email. But I recommend using Google Drive. So make a copy. And then to start with, I'm going to have you replace this with your site name. And you'll notice in this worksheet, think of it as the fill in the blank. There are instructions and guides for you as you go throughout this. You will be, when you are in the course, it will give you a cue called worksheet activity that says, hey, go to your worksheet, complete section 3. Okay, go to your worksheet, complete section 2. Is everyone there? Thumbs up if you've been able to get to the course, open the document, and replace your site name. It's extra. Okay. Now that you've got that done, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you all right now to go to my Calendly link. I just put it in the chat, and set up a meeting. Set up our consultation. Now, this is a consultation that you are saying by the time we have this meeting, you've completed the course and you've completed your worksheet. So I've given you, my recommendation is to, let's pull up the, my recommendation is, so we're here on the 10th of September. We want to have this meeting with you and me by the 3rd, maybe the 4th. That's okay. So by this week. So I recommend, I'm happy to meet with you earlier for sure, but just be sure that by the time we've met, you've completed the course and your worksheet. So I recommend looking for a time this week of the last week of September, first week in October. Or I'm happy, like I said, I'm happy to meet with you before then, but just you'll want to make sure that you've completed the worksheet and the course. Okay, everyone able to do that? Any questions around how to do that? We will also send a follow-up email. Tanner, maybe you can help me with this, with these links in it so that you can get access to the course really easily and get access to schedule the appointment with me. Okay. All right. We've got just a few minutes left for any questions. All right. Well, again, when I hear silence, I hear you go, I understand fully and have it totally under control. Also, here's my email. You can reach out to me directly at any time, of course, if you have questions or if something isn't working, you have one of the forums is acting wonky, I'm happy to help support. Okay. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Shelley. Also, we want to encourage you on these monthly webinars as we present new themes and topics to invite other members of your community or your justice circle to participate. It doesn't have to only be the site director. We think there's a lot of information that your team could benefit from as we go through this process. So we encourage you to do that. The other thing I'm going to ask you, we're going to be putting out a newsletter in a couple of weeks. And if you have a compelling story that you could put in about 500 words or less that describes an interaction or a youth participation or engagement, something that illustrates your program and the impact that you're having, if you'd be willing to share that, we would like to put it in the newsletter so our National Advisory Board could see it and our various funders could also see the story of what you're doing. So be thinking about that. We'll be sending a reminder to you as well. So thank you for your time and your participation. Any questions for us as a whole in terms of Act Now? Great. Well, we hope you have a great week. Thanks for participating, and we'll be back in touch.